Welcome to Your Town. I'm the culinary host, Chef Wendy Brodie, Art of Food. And my guest today, I'm so excited about. She is a super duper la dame. She's a chef, she's an author of a book and cookbooks. Anyway, she's just the most wonderful woman, fundraiser, culinary educator. Her accolades go around the block in every town. Welcome, Mary. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, it's very exciting to be here.
And Mary, I mean, I've known you really briefly, but probably about 10 years or more now. It feels all too brief for all you've done.
Well, I was going to say that, weren't you in the American Institute of Wine and Food also?
Yes, yes.
Well, so was I, so we probably passed each other.
Yes.
That's right.
And then we had friends in common over the years, and not only are you a wonderful single representative and role model, but you also had the most wonderful marriage that we'll wind up with in the end.
Oh,
and
yes,
we'll get to hear all about that.
All right, very good.
The men in your life, besides your wonderful husband, Roy, is Michelle Escoffier, and
Yes.
we want to touch on that. We also want to find out about your culinary theater dinners. That, I know you've got another book coming out on that. So those are all the things that I want to know lots more about.
All right.
But start with a quick bio of, you came down from the Bay Area, but you were born where and blah, blah, blah.
Well,
Haiku it.
I call them defining moments in our
perfect.
journey through life. And of course, born on a farm in Illinois, and I actually was my twin brother was first, and my
wow.
father went off to send telegrams that he had a son, and I came 6 hours later.
Oh my goodness, what a surprise.
I was a blue baby and not expected to live. And in fact, that was even more of a major defining moment because of the fact that when the olfactory right here take over after you have been deprived of oxygen, your taste buds increase.
Increase. Wow.
So I was born already to be able to taste food.
Oh, good for you. And it lasts, right?
Well, yes, because there was a book actually written called Liars, Lovers, and Heroes by two microbiologists off the East Coast. And I discovered that many years later on why I had such taste buds. So,
isn't that fascinating? And so you probably, like I had heard, once we turn 25, our taste buds start declining. And I thought, no. Not in this business.
No, absolutely not. But from there, of course, my father moved us to the big city, Chicago, and then to California. And of course, all along the way, I was fascinated by food. I never had a canned good until I moved to Chicago, because everything was home canned. And so what people are doing today, we've always done. We did all our own butchering. And my mother put up over 1,000 jars of food a year. And we used to have a big truck garden. And we were paid in comic books to sit in the garden and hit the cows if they tried to jump the fence.
Oh, how cute.
So that was really probably the main thing that started my knowing about good food. And
that's so complete, though, when you think of it. So many of us that were growing up in the city or residential areas, we only knew eggs came from the grocery store in the 12-pack carton.
No. Oh, no, not at all. But I think I probably would never have, even though I did everything in food in high school, I hated sewing, and I loved cooking, and I just thought everybody loved cooking. So I flunked sewing.
Oh.
And so when I was getting ready to because I was in a college prep class, and the teacher said, "Why did you get an F in sewing?" I said, "I can't sew." And so the teacher went over and talked to the sewing teacher and said, "You change that grade. She's such a good cook."
Oh, that's great. Be
So-
glad you flunked sewing, because in home ec, I was sort of good at it, and everybody asked me to make their clothes or fix them,
Right.
so you lucked out. I wish I had flunked.
Well, but the first time that I really had a truly food experience where I tasted things that I never could believe I would even be able to understand was when my brother married President de Gaulle's goddaughter
Oh, that
back in the
sounds-
60s in Paris.
Wow.
And I flew over for the wedding. And I can't begin to tell you that when I started tasting all of these foods, I was absolutely shocked. It was so wonderful. It didn't end up very well because I ended up in a terrible auto accident and 3 months in a French hospital. And came back to the United States, ambulatory and in and out of hospitals for 2 years. And that changed my life. That was another defining moment, because then I realized that I was the executive secretary for the vice president of a major firm in the Bay Area, and I lost my typing skills. I had all my tendons and nerves severed in my hand, and I thought, what do I do that I do well? And you know what I said? Cook.
And what great therapy. I hope that was, because
Well,
you're
it
so
was-
good at it.
Well, I actually then, at the time, because I'm not some young person who can go to any wonderful school like the Escoffier schools or Cordon Bleu or wherever you would go, or to the school that you attended in San Francisco, they weren't available. And so I went to West Valley College. They had a restaurant management course there. And then, of course, I decided to open my company, Mission Delicatessen and Catering, Inc. And it started out with 3 people, ended up with 80 employees. I had the best accounts. I had Apple Computers, Pac Bell, AT&T, Kaiser Hospital. I did all the private catering for a National Semiconductor, Charlie Spork, and it was 20 years of fabulous time. And my delicatessen served homemade soups every day. And so I think I'd only been in business maybe 3 weeks,
Yes.
and a very nice-looking man walked in and up to the deli counter, and he said, "Do you make soups and sandwiches? Will you to take out?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Well, we've had a train wreck." He was the vice president of Southern Pacific.
Oh, a real train
real
wreck.
train wreck.
Oh, my goodness.
In Newark, California.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I fed all of the workers that had to come in and clean everything up for 2 weeks.
Oh,
And you
how
can't
wonderful.
imagine, that was a major catering affair. And homemade soups went out every day, and everybody got their relatives that worked for me, and we put it together.
Oh, congratulations.
But my delicatessen and restaurant served homemade soup every day. We never bought a canned soup or any canned or pre-made salads, everything. I ran 2 shifts. We ran a night shift that made all homemade salads, and then during the day, of course, we had people coming in, and on the side, I did the catering that turned out to be the big part of my business.
Wow. Well, on that soup note, I'm just
Oh,
going to
yes.
hold up your book a second, which I'm the proud owner of the first one. Now it's gone through a couple of printings, so
And
it's, anyway. And your dear husband tasted these recipes along with your salad.
Yes.
But I remember a salmon soup that you had made to one of the events we
Yes.
went or something, and I can taste it to this day. It was just
I'm
silky
so
and
glad
creamy.
you asked about the salmon soup, because there's a reason. My grandmother was Swedish. Lady in waiting to the Queen of Sweden, my great-grandmother,
Oh my goodness.
ran off with a Laplander and came to the United States, and she did catering. And then my grandmother was born, and of course, ultimately married my grandfather, but I never knew her.
Oh, interesting. So it's in the
She-
genes as well.
Yeah, she died when my father was 2 and my aunt was 4, and was sent, she had tuberculosis, and was sent to Sierra Madre. That's where they used to send people that were ill. And so anyway, this is a rendition of her soup. But of course, the salmon, they always would do the fumet. But I have offered the soup also with an easier way to do it if you don't want to take time to make a fumet.
Well, that's great. That's great.
And people who do not like salmon like this soup.
Oh no, to me there was sort of nothing fishy about it.
No.
It just was like silk going down. It was
And you know
wonderful.
what? There was nothing fried in that soup. It's all boil. And I mean, for a soup to taste that good with just boil is
that's
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Because the salmon didn't dry out or anything.
Well, you know, there's 126 recipes in this book, and you go around the world. But I'm starting my 4th printing, and I'm adding 6 new recipes. And also, if you'd like to select wines, because soups can be dinner, as you know,
yes,
and especially some of the soups in here. And so my new soups, as I travel or go anywhere, they immediately will go in the book. And
That's great. So this is the book that keeps on giving
and giving.
And that's kind of like the joy of cooking. That's such a basic, and every few
Absolutely.
years they. And then we didn't bring the book. I should have brought mine, but my introduction to you also came through the Les Dames Escoffier and Disciples. And then we got to meet Michelle Escoffier,
That's right.
which you've had a wonderful relationship with.
Well,
And
that is
touch
another,
on that.
that's a defining moment. I will go
Yes.
to that.
Okay.
And let me tell you about it. It's called North Wales, Halloween, 1996. All right. And so I'm in a little hotel out on the Irish Sea in the Cardigan Bay called the Porth Tochan. And the phone rang, and it was Len Pickell, who was president of the James Beard Foundation, and a very good friend of mine. And he said, "Mary, what are you doing tomorrow afternoon?" I said, "I'm in Wales." He said, "No, you have to be at the James Beard House. Escoffier is coming to introduce his grandfather's book, Memories of My Life. His wife has translated it, and she is also an honorary dame, as you know, in our organization." And I said, "I'm already packing." And of course, having my husband, who was an airline captain with TWA, and they had 5 flights a day out of Paris, and I think about 3 out of London. And we got a car immediately and managed to get to Paris. And we landed at 3 in the afternoon in New York and went into the Beard House and sat down, and he put me on one side of Michelle and my husband on the other.
And the rest is
Well, we
history.
just had our 20th year, and I have to say that I brought Escoffier to this peninsula.
Absolutely, you did.
I mean,
and he's charming, and he's wonderful.
And he
the
comes
group-
every year, at
Yes.
least once or twice a year, and he loves Monterey. He loves all the people here. And I mean, he would know you by name. I
Yes,
mean,
yes.
he's
And,
just that. And you were the first inducted female on the
well, I feel
into
thank
in
you.
Monterey,
That was very, very lovely.
into the disciples.
And then we're going to have to, I mean, Escoffier was the first book in cooking school, and I know that that wasn't the correct version of Escoffier, that it has been rewritten properly by him.
That was an interesting story. If you think about it, Escoffier, there were really no books until
Right.
Escoffier wrote that book, because
Exactly.
everything was a big secret in the restaurants.
Exactly.
And he brought about so many wonderful things. And that book I call the Bible.
It is. That's what we grew
Of
up
all
studying.
chefs.
Yes, it really is. And so since I'm going to have you back, because we are not even going to
We
be
could do
able
a whole
to
time
touch-
on
yes,
Escoffier.
Yes, but I don't want to leave your wonderful, wonderful husband out, and he just recently passed, which
Yes, he
we
did.
all miss him. But please expound, and you just finished this new book on him with his help, and then you finished it off.
I finished it.
So please share, all about everything. We've got a little time left, and
Well,
I don't want to leave such a
I know.
special man out.
Well, I don't either, Wendy. And let me tell you that Bob Wecker helped me finish this book. He was so ill that he just kind of transferred his voice into the computer. And then I hired his secretary from NASA. So if I explain that Roy was in the very first Air Force pilots class in training,
Wow.
class 48C, San Antonio, Texas. And in the front of the book, I hand typed every cadet that was in that class.
Wow.
And then he was TWA, and he ended his career as the last chief pilot for TWA, and he was international flight manager for TWA, and then he was hired by NASA as their senior aviation safety analyst. And so this book has so many stories. One is his first, when he was in a plane that crashed over the, I'm going to say, over the Sacramento River. I still have his parachute.
Wow.
And then he was also had a fire on board a 747 over the Atlantic that is in here.
This will entice people to read this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us today, Mary. And I've got to have you back soon, because we didn't even get to touch on your theater and all the creative dishes. So that's next time.
Oh,
that's
all right.
next time. And hopefully then that book will be out. And
Yes.
if it isn't, I'll have you on a third time.
Oh, okay. Well, I would happily do that.
Oh, well, honestly, you're such a dear. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
18 minutes goes by
I
too
know.
quickly,
I thought
doesn't it?
I just started. Yes. So anyway, I look forward to coming back.
Thank you.